Hello again, students. If you are following along with me, this will be the third video that we're doing, which is going to be the first introduction to coding something and simulating something with an Arduino controller in Tinkercad. If you haven't looked at previous videos, you might need to do that, or again, talk to your teacher about getting up to this stage. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the name. I have actually just reused the file that I originally had from the previous video. So I'm going to change it. Again, I'm using my format of last name, first name, then the name of the piece of work. So my name hasn't changed, but the work has. So I will call this Arduino 1. That will do. And click anywhere to let that update. And there you go. It has now been saved. So here's what I'm going to start with. I'm going to first of all bring in from the basic components an Arduino. Now, if you don't know what an Arduino is, it's a basic microcontroller, and we're going to use it to control our circuit. The next thing I'm going to want is a very small breadboard. Now, by default, we have this one called small, but we actually want to go a bit smaller than that. I'm going to search for mini and bring one of those in to our circuit. I always have trouble. I've got two over there, sorry. Let's just delete one quickly. And that is our mini breadboard. So I'll clear my search out and go back to having just the basic items there. Now I'm going to use my scroll wheel to zoom in a little bit, just so I can see it a bit more closely. I'm now going to bring in an LED, and I'm just going to stick that in along any of these sort of top row ones for the moment. It doesn't really matter for this point. And I'm also going to bring in a resistor, and I'm going to rotate that so it's horizontally. And I'm going to make sure that the left end lines up with the right hand leg of this LED. So that leg there, make sure it is in vertically lined. Now again, these will be things that you will probably talk about with your teacher if need be, but when we use this thing called a breadboard, this white part, you'll notice that as I move my mouse over any of these columns, they are joined together. And that's how a breadboard works. Everything in this column inside is technically joined. It doesn't go across this gap here, so underneath this is a new set. So anything here is joined, anything here is joined, but they are not joined horizontally. So what we've effectively done by having these two legs in the same column is we've effectively joined them together, and that's very, very important. Right, the next thing I need to do is draw some wires in. So what I'm going to have is the ground. So this is the ground of our LED. I'm going to connect that to a ground on our Arduino. Now the ground on Arduino is represented by G and D. So we've got a ground here that we can use. And we've also got two grounds down here. I'm going to use one of these down the bottom in this case, just to keep the wires a bit more separate. I have got my wire set to black, not that it matters, it just helps us to recognize things. And I'm going to bring that out from somewhere in this column, which in this case, I'm going to grab it from here, and I'm going to come out and go down around to join in. So just click into that point, and I also like to keep my wires looking nice and neat, so I'm using the guides to help line these up nice and straight. So I've effectively made a ground connection to the ground part of the LED. I'm now going to bring in a connection from this leg of the resistor, and I'm going to take that from the top here, but before I do that, I might just change my color. I'm going to go with a green color here. Whoops, sorry, I still had the wire chosen, so let's put that back, click somewhere else, now choose the green, so the next wire I draw will be green. I'm going to bring that out of here, and I'm going to take it into port number 10 up the top. Now, while we're doing all this may be confusing for you right now, don't worry about that. Just try and copy it along. I am going to put some breaks in, or some bends, sorry, into that wire, which I forgot to do as I was drawing it, just to keep it nice and neat as well. So hopefully, if you have followed along exactly, you have a port 10 connected to the resistor here. The resistor is connected to the anode, which is the positive side of the LED, because it's in line with it here. Then we have the cathode, or the negative side of the LED, connected in line with the negative that goes to ground. It could be this ground, it could be this ground, or it could be this ground up here. They will all work the same way. Now let's have a look at the Arduino. At the moment, we've got a simulation of it being unplugged, And the Arduino is going to be what supplies the power to our circuit. Basically, when our Arduino tells it to, we're going to send a signal out, which is electricity, out through port 10, which means that we should be able to turn our LED on. Oh, I forgot one very important thing, the LED. Not the LED, so the resistor. We need to change this to be 470 ohms to change that symbol there. Otherwise, we would essentially turn off our LED anyway. So just, again, don't have to explain why yet. Just trust me, 470 ohms for the resistor. Now let's see how to do the coding. So we're going to come up here to the code toggle box, and I'm going to turn it on. If it's the first time using this code in this particular project, it's probably going to come up like this with the block style. I'm not going to be using blocks in this video, so I'm going to change the style to be text only. Okay, it's going to warn me that I've got stuff there that I'm going to lose. That's fine. Say continue. And it has given me now the default code. So this is like the most basic code for Arduino. Okay, we're going to make a few quick changes, and the main thing we're going to change is we have decided to use port 10. So we're going to change here where it says LED underscore built in. We're going to change that just to be the number 10. Now, I'm not going to explain this code to you at the moment. I'm just going to ask you again to make the same changes as me so that we can see it working. So in the same way, everywhere that we have LED underscore built in, we need to change that to be the number 10. So that we're using the port that we have chosen. With that done, we should be able to press start simulation and see the simulation work. Now, before I press it, and hopefully you haven't yet, have a think about, look at this code, and you may be able to guess what it's going to do. You can pause the video and have a think about it if you like, but we'll come back and see if we are correct. So what I can see with my simulation now is my LED is turning on and off. It's essentially blinking. All right, and if we were to look at the code, again, I'm not going to go through it in detail, but essentially it is sending a signal to the light to turn on. That's what high means. It's delaying for 1,000 milliseconds, which is roughly the equivalent of a real second. Then it's sending a low signal to the same pin, which is essentially turning off the LED, waiting for another second, and then we might have noticed it's in a loop, so it just keeps doing that. And that's all this program will do. It'll continuously flash this LED on and off roughly every second until the power is disconnected from our controller, or until we press the reset button, or it's something else that prevents it from continuing. So if we stop the simulation, you can see our virtual plug was pulled out. Our simulation stops. If we start it again, it will just go back to exactly the same code and keep going. And that is a very basic simulation using the Arduino. So we can write our code in here and we can simulate it in the simulation area. We can hide our code away simply by pressing the code button just to get rid of it. We can come back and modify our program, or our circuit, and we can always go back to our code, write some new code, and see how it will work. So that is our first sample of using the Arduino and a simulation in the Tinkercad program. From here, we'll be simulating each of, in my class I should say, simulating each of the projects that we will be doing also from our Arduino kits. I will post those videos, and if you're interested, you're welcome to have a look. I'll leave some information about the kit that we are using if you are not from my class or would like to follow along with your own piece. I'm not affiliated with any of these products themselves, but you're welcome to purchase a product and follow along, or just go out and get the pieces yourself. You can buy them at most electronic stores, and you can try following the same circuits that I'll be doing here. Thanks for watching this one, and again, if you're in my class, we are ready to start our actual work.